It's Wednesday. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you with us here today. This is a couple announcements as we get ready to start the show. First of all, Jesse, you are blank today. You are blank.
I am excited today.
What are you excited about?
This is my last show
as a free man.
Yeah. And then I have work tomorrow. Then I'm off Friday.
You do have to work tomorrow, huh?
Yeah, I got to work tomorrow. I don't
I'll be traveling. I'll be traveling tomorrow.
I'll see you tomorrow night.
Yes, you will. For those who may not know, Jesse's nuptials this weekend in Canton, Ohio. And so we will be all convening in what is that? What is that considered like northeastern Ohio? Like at least eastern Ohio, but in that vicinity anyway. So we'll be there. Today is Mailbag Day. Good news for those of you who don't like commercials. And let's face it, everyone at some point complains about commercials. We have minimal commercial breaks in today's show. We will only take one break each hour. We'll have a top of the hour break at 6 o'clock, but this hour, one break in the middle. Second hour, one break in the middle. That's it. Minimal breaks on today's show and a lot of content for you. We've got a lot of content coming up on Saturday, of course, when Notre Dame hosts Boise State, 3:30 at Notre Dame Stadium, and you will hear the action here on Sports Radio WSBT, as well as Sunny 101.5, the Notre Dame Radio Network on the Odyssey app with Tony Simeone and Ryan Harris on the call. But our game day coverage here on WSBT starts at 11 a.m. Eastern Time this Saturday, live from the linebacker, Tim Grau, Jimmy Rizzeri, Eric Henson, Tyler Horka. They will always be there, or they will always be there, but they'll be there with great guests as well before the Irish take on the Broncos for the first time ever this Saturday. Back-to-back weeks, first-time opponents for Notre Dame. This week's guests on the Game Day show include former Notre Dame receivers Javen Hunter and Malcolm Johnson, as well as former All-American defensive back Bobby Taylor. So tune in, the all-new Game Day show from 11 a.m. to 2:30 Eastern Time, live at the linebacker right across the street there from Notre Dame, the world-famous linebacker. I think they came in like the Athletic. Did you see that poll the Athletic did? See if I still have this. They did a ranking of the top college bars of 2025, and the linebacker comes in at number 8 on the list.
I had not seen that.
The Airliner in Iowa City, the Boot in New Orleans, Crunchies in East Lansing, the Esso Club in Clemson, He's Not Here in Chapel Hill, Jack and Dan's in Spokane, Washington, the Library, Oxford, Mississippi, then the linebacker, then Nick's English Hut in Bloomington, and Wando's in Madison, Wisconsin. That is the list. That's it.
Nice. Can't say I've been to any besides the linebacker.
I know, me either. That's pretty much the only one. Well, it's Mailbag Day on the show, so if you're in the YouTube chat right now, get your questions in. What are you waiting for? You've got an opportunity. Salty Virginia Peanuts is not in there, like mail bombing that chat. We do have some that were pre-submitted in the Irish Breakdown Champions Lounge, the Premium Champions Lounge today, so we will have those. And, of course, we'll have rapid fire in the second hour of the show today as well. Try to keep your eyes off that Cubs game if you can. I know your attention is going to be diverted today. We start with, I am Tenzin. I am the son of Aang. I am the last hope for the Air Nation from the Champions Lounge. And a very important question to start off. He says, when you put your pants on in the morning, do you do it one leg at a time or do you jump into them like I do?
That's a really funny question. I don't know a lot of people who jump into their pants. I go one leg at a time.
I actually have a very special trampoline, and I have my pants set up, and I do a somersault or I do a backflip into my pants in the morning. That's how I do it. If you're not doing it like that, you're just wasting your time.
I forgot that that's what you do.
Yes. Very, very special setup. Another one, though, from Tenzin. He's got a couple serious ones here. And then we've kind of been waiting all week for you to show up so you can talk about Notre Dame's linebackers. He asks, do you think we'll see fixes at the linebacker position now that we're seemingly watching the changes we were hoping for from the secondary? What do you think about this? Your take, your evaluation of a linebacker play, Jesse, who played middle linebacker for what, 15, 16 years out of your life, probably something like that?
Long time. There's days where I wake up and miss hitting someone, so it's naturally just a part of my bones. I guess what I'm most curious about this question is kind of defining fixes. Are we talking about like technique? Are we talking about platooning different people?
I think he's just saying, do you think they'll play better?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the hardest constraint on the field is the linebacker position because you're playing, ultimately two roles. You're the only person that really has run responsibilities and pass responsibilities. And so I think when, early on in the season when the defensive line was struggling and the secondary was struggling, that's only going to put the linebackers in a tougher spot because that gives them kind of more responsibility and having to kind of cover ground for maybe some mistakes that are being made in the secondary and up front. I really haven't mind Notre Dame's linebacker play, to be honest with you. I think Drake Bowen's having a slow start to the season. I think there was a drive against Arkansas. I remember texting you and saying that drive was on Drake Bowen, but then he had a really good drive after that. So I think as the defense gets better, I think the linebackers will naturally get better. But I think that there are some fundamental things going wrong in their technique and in some of their run fits. I'd like to see the linebackers do a better job of when they get pressure, the technique that they're using to get by, offensive linemen. A lot of times it seems like they're just running right into offensive linemen and not really working moves or technique to get past them. But again, I think
running into offensive linemen or just running into a pile with no real, like I am Tenzin saying, technique plus aggressiveness. That I'm confused. There seems to be a much greater read and react mentality this year, and I think Marcus Freeman would call that football versus football. Like they don't feel like they are allowed to just fully unleash themselves. Like, do you feel like it is the scheme? Because Vince and I were talking about it the other day. We saw Drake Bowen last year. He played at a completely different level last year, but it just feels like it's almost like he's on ice skates out there, just kind of feeling things out, or, like on one of those balancing boards, like a teeter-totter almost, like he's got one foot on each side. And it's like, what am I doing here? What am I seeing here? He doesn't always seem sure of what he's supposed to be doing.
Yeah, I think that, they're definitely in, some sort of new defense. Obviously it's not called the same way that Chris Ash has been calling it. So that's something like I remember, junior year, my linebacker coach became the head coach. And we got a new linebacker coach and, the defense predominantly stayed the same, but there was still, some new things to learn based off of kind of, how the defensive coordinator wanted to call and maybe how he wanted the linebackers to play overall. And so there is going to be a little bit of style change and new things that you have to learn. And so I think when you're caught up between those things of new defensive coordinator, kind of learning the new ins and outs of a scheme, learning how, adapting to how they're calling the game and where they're kind of, putting you within the game. And then also the defensive line and the secondary struggling. I do think that that's all kind of adding to this cocktail of maybe slower play from the linebackers overall. But I think as the rest of the defense catches on, I think naturally the linebackers will catch on. I haven't seen anything that's like, wow, Notre Dame lacks the skill. It just seems like they're kind of a step behind. And again, what you were saying, getting out of football and really getting into or playing football right now. But that's the hard thing is when you're still learning a scheme and you're not necessarily playing with that clarity or velocity that Marcus Freeman talks about, then you do get into that football. So I think the more that they get more comfortable and they can be more kind of free flowing and trust their instincts, they'll get back into football.
David Webb, based on the description that I just gave of what the linebackers look like, he says that's called doing the Marist. And it's funny you say that because during the Cowboys game the other night, Maris Leofau had a pretty good rookie year last year, but he's playing in a system, as we've talked about, that is the Matt Eberflus system in Dallas right now, very similar to what Chris Ash is trying to do here at Notre Dame with all the zone schemes and everything else. And I was saying the other night, it's like Marist kind of hovers around where guys have the ball, but never actually makes any plays on the ball. When he does try to tackle, he's tackling up around the head and shoulders with his arms. He's not, like minimal knee bend and those kind of things. And quite frankly, I think we've seen some of that same kind of play from Drake Bowen so far this year.
Yeah, I would definitely agree. I just, when in a new defense and you're reestablishing your role, expectations, fits, all that kind of stuff, I think you'll see a little bit of this lag that we'll see. But I'm not. I guess the thing that I would emphasize the most is I'm not worried that this is going to be a long-term problem. I think that these things will get cleaned up as the season goes on.
Jesse's more confident than many. I guess we shall see. The defense did look better last week. We'll see if we see a progression that I am Tenson is talking about. He also asks, do you think a pass catcher for Notre Dame goes for 100-plus yards this week? If so, do you think that person can get 125 to 150? In Boise State's, I'll start with this one because I did a little bit of research. In Boise State's loss to USF, they had two receivers who were both over 90 yards in that game. And I do think that Notre Dame has a really good chance to have another 100-yard receiver in this game. My money would probably go toward Jordan Faison because he is still the volume receiver right now. He's leading the team in receptions, whereas Malachi Fields has been a little bit more the big play type guy. So I would hedge toward Jordan Faison to be, and I think that they do have a really good. If I'm going scale of 1 to 10, I'd give it a solid 7. I think.
Yeah, I think someone is going to get that 100-yard mark this weekend, but I don't know who exactly it's going to be. I would like it to be Greathouse, to be honest with you, just to kind of get him rolling. I think we've seen Faison, Malachi Fields, Eli Raridan start to get things going. Will Pauling has had a nice game. I'm waiting on that Greathouse game. So for the fun of it, I'll say he gets that big breakout game this weekend.
I like it. I'd like to see him get more than 1 or 2 catches in a game to feel confident in him. But I mean, he had some impact last week with a couple of receptions that he had. Speaking of Jordan Faison, Ballpeen Shillelagh asks, why do you think Jordan Faison has had the majority of receiving yards from CJ so far?
I think that, Faison's a guy who creates a lot of space. And ultimately it kind of fits the scheme of Mike Denbrock's offense. Sometimes, he's more of your kind of underneath intermediate, get off the ball, quick routes, a lot of yards after catch. So just by design and his natural skill set, I think there's just a comfortability of getting Faison on the ball and allowing him to kind of, get those yards after catch.
Yeah, I think that we've talked about this a little bit before, more last week. It feels like the comfort level that they have started off with, that maybe Mike Denbrock / Gino Guidugli, whoever, and maybe some Marcus Freeman mixed in there as well. Like the early comfort level with CJ Carr was work the perimeters of the field a little bit more to the field and boundary receivers and less to Jaden Greathouse. Because like when you look at the catches that Jaden Greathouse made last week, what were they? You had the slot fade to the sideline, and you had another pass that was on the outside. It was not like, a little crossing pattern. It was not a slant, any of that kind of stuff. I think they're still avoiding CJ Carr throwing into any traffic over the middle, kind of like that late throw to Jadarian Price a couple of weeks ago. So I think that's more it. Like that's why Fields and Faison have been the top 2 receivers so far. They're the outside receivers. But as they showed last week, you can get Jaden Greathouse still involved with like that slot fade has been a feature of Mike Denbrock's offense for a long time. They just hadn't done very much of it through the first 3 games, and they hit that last week. And now you can't just sit on that all the time. But I do, and Will Pauling is getting more involved these last couple of weeks as well. So I think that there are ways to continue to get them involved in the offense a little bit more. But I think that's why Faison is kind of the guy. And also because he's 100% healthy. Like, I think he fell off our radar after last year because of the high ankle sprain that he had early on in the season, and he was just never 100% last year. Now he's 100% healthy, and he's showing the kind of skill that a lot of us thought that he had. I think he's kind of having the year so far this year that we thought maybe he was going to have last year.
Yeah, and I think the biggest part that you brought up was they're kind of cautiously avoiding the middle still, right? Like, and I think that's smart with a young quarterback. You just continue to build the confidence and load up, heavy personnel for run, and really, make teams kind of commit to the box. And then as the game, opens up, that's when you start taking those shots towards the middle of the field.
Yep, a lot of good points. David says, or Faison is good at finding open space. That's true. And Denbrock, I think, is good at scheming up open space. Like, how many wide open receivers did Carr throw to last week? And
I think Faison definitely has a good knack at just sitting down in the zone. You always have one of the at least a couple of those guys on your team who just have a feel for the soft spots of zone.
Yep. And Joe says Faison is going to get covered more, opening up the others. Absolutely true.
Well, I think that's what makes this wide receiver core so special is like they just don't have a dedicated number one. And so it's like if you try to limit one, Notre Dame has really a lot of other good options that they can go to. It's like it's not necessarily pick your poison. Like Notre Dame just has these studs everywhere, but they have a bunch of above average wide receivers who can get the job done, not only in the passing game, but really blocking on the perimeter as well.
I am 10, or this is Ballpeen Shillelagh, rather. Excuse me. He also asks, in a WWE style college football mascot showdown bracket, who would you have winning, and who would go down in the first fight? And he also says, "Congrats, Jesse."
Oh man,
I'm trying to think of some good mascots. Mascots. Like, like the leprechaun is supposed to be a scrapper, but the leprechaun is also relatively small compared to a lot of these other mascots. Like if I'm going with old Sparty up there in East Lansing, like that is a good size mascot. Or that Wake Forest Demon Deacon. I mean, he is a demon deacon, and he is also big. So I might just go with Sparty, though. He might be at the top of my list in terms of who would come out on top. Like,
I got two good answers that come to mind.
Okay.
I think a Michigan State Spartan would do well in a fight. And I think that, the Sun Devil down at Arizona State, because he's got to have some sort of like firepower, right? Like you can just set everything on fire.
Fireballs. Yeah.
So
Arrow Guy 173 says Purdue's carries a hammer. That's true. He carries like the big sledgehammer because he's working on the railroad or whatever they're doing over there, whatever stuff they're doing in West Lafayette. I think that's good. The first one to go down, like that is, I'm trying to think of like I didn't think enough about this. I get like who would be like I can't say the leprechaun, but again, he is one of the smaller, or he or she, one of the smaller mascots out there. But there have to be like the orange. I think the orange is the first to fall. There's just an orange, right? It might be a big orange, but I don't think that orange is going to push back very far. So
yeah, and orange, like you said, would go down in defeat rather quickly. You just cut him in half and he's done.
Mike Huff in the YouTube chat says, will the Irish be the number one scoring offense in the Power Four at the end of the season? They are currently number 8 right now. And
I mean, they have a strong chance, and they're through their toughest opponents. The schedule is very favorable moving forward.
Yes, should continue to crank out more points and can continue to put it up. I'm trying to let me look here real quick. Let me see. going to pull up the scoring offense. I believe they are number 7 in terms of the Power 4. They are number 8 overall right now. I think there might be one. Yeah, North Texas. Oh, they're actually number 11 right now. So they're number 11. Here's who's in front of them: North Texas, Missouri, Virginia, Oregon, Indiana, Southern Cal, Vanderbilt, Tennessee, Texas Tech, Florida State. Florida State leading the nation, 53 points a game. Notre Dame, number 11, 44 points a game. I think that if Florida State keeps that pace up, Texas Tech is going to be able to. What makes this hard, you know what? I don't know that they'll get to number 1, but I think they'll end up top 3 in the Power 4 by the time it's all said and done, because I was talking about this with the schedules yesterday. At this point in the season, so many of these teams have played multiple combinations of FCS and group of 6 teams. Right. Some of them have even played 3 already, and that does inflate some of these stats. And when you look at Notre Dame, all 4 opponents that Notre Dame has played have been Power 4 teams, and obviously 2 of those opponents are in the top 10, ranked in the top 10 right now. So I think that Notre Dame's schedule is going to lighten up as the season goes on. And for a lot of these other teams, it'll get a little bit stiffer because now they're going to have to play non-FCS and non-group of 6 teams. Because, even for Notre Dame, it theoretically should be a little bit tougher this week just because you have the best group of 6 team traditionally coming in here this weekend. But I'll say they'll at least be top 3. I won't go number 1, but I think they'll be top 3 by the end of the season.
Yeah, I mean, if they stay on this pace, and as some of these other schools work out of these FCS opponents and into the heart of their, conference schedules, and Notre Dame, knowing that Notre Dame kind of has gone through probably the 3 toughest offenses that they'll face all season between Arkansas, Texas A&M, and Miami, I think there's, I think there's a good chance that they'll continue to kind of move on here, and I'll go top 5. So I think it's hard to, pinpoint the best. Just for variability, but I like top 5. I think they're going to be. Okay. It's refreshing to see how quickly this passing game has opened up. Like, this is what we wanted all off season, and it's just everything on offense right now is rolling.
And it's why it's going to be tougher and tougher to stop because of the fact that you have 2 All-American caliber running backs.
You remember when everyone criticized me for saying that the offensive line didn't need to be criticized, and we're talking about an offense that's putting up, top 5 in points right now.
They can always be criticized. They did play better last week. Again, just like the defense, I'd like to see them stack another good performance on top of the one they had last week. There are some people who seem to expect perfection out of everyone, though, like when it comes to their critiques. Like, they're not going to be perfect every week. Even Zach Martin, I realize it was infrequently, but even Zach Martin was flagged, 7 times in his career with the Dallas Cowboys. Like, there were, like the off chances where you could critique Zach a little bit. Even Quentin Nelson has his days, so they're not going to be perfect every time. So if your standard is going to be perfection all the time, you're always going to find reasons to flag them. But they did get better. I'd like to see, and I think they'll continue to get better. Did you want to give away the location of the nuptials, by the way, this weekend? David is asking.
He's asking it's at Gervasi. Close by.
Oh, okay. I got schooled by Tommy Guns on the geography of that area. I didn't realize Tommy lived so close to the Canton, Ohio area.
Yeah, Massillon. Massillon?
I think it's Massillon. I think. Just like 8 miles to the west, basically.
Yeah.
Tommy also wants to know top 25 contenders versus pretenders so far this season.
Does that mean we give 25 names here? I'm confused. Like,
in the top 25, who's a contender? Who's a pretender?
Oh, okay. Let me pull up the latest.
Can't take everything literally. I think Ohio State's a contender. I think Oregon's a contender. I think Miami's a contender. I honestly think Ole Miss, as much as I like seeing that win over LSU last week, they jumped up 9 spots in the rankings. And Arkansas, the team that Notre Dame just smacked down, Arkansas had over 500 yards and scored over 30 points against Ole Miss. I think they're a pretender. I think Oklahoma's a little bit of a pretender, depending on what happens with Mateer. That's going to be really pivotal for them.
Yeah, Oklahoma, even with Mateer, I'm not buying them as this top 5 team.
Yeah. Texas A&M, I'll keep them contender right now. It's going to be interesting to see what happens as they continue through their SEC schedule. Penn State, I mean, how do we want to categorize them, contender versus pretender? Because I think, like they always do, they'll probably end up making the playoff, but I don't think they're a legitimate national championship contender. Do you?
No, I don't think that they're a national championship contender. You know who I'm really anxious about or on the fence and on this list is Texas Tech.
I know. That's the biggest one.
I'd like to see a little bit more of them. I'm indifferent on Penn State. I think that, yes, they lost to a good Oregon team at home in double overtime, but when are they ever going to pull out the big one, you know? And there's probably not much more that needs to be said on that. I think Vanderbilt versus Alabama this weekend is a good test for both of those teams. Vanderbilt's 5-0. We'll see if they're really a contender.
Yep.
I'm not really bought in on Michigan.
Either.
I think Georgia is so-so. I think LSU is so-so. Really, the main contenders I see right now are Ohio State, Oregon, Miami. That might be it. And I think Ole Miss might be on the brink. I'm just like you. I'm not 100% sold on Ole Miss, but I haven't seen, like Texas, Alabama, Georgia, LSU, Tennessee, Oklahoma. None of those teams have overly impressed me.
Ole Miss's schedule isn't brutal, but they go to Georgia and Oklahoma in back-to-back games in October. And then they've got South Carolina, Florida, Mississippi State as well. So, I mean, their schedule sets up pretty nicely. But those back-to-backs, Georgia and Oklahoma, I'll be shocked if they come out of those undefeated. If they do, they're obviously a contender at that point. We're going to take our only break of this hour and then be back. More Notre Dame football talk in the mailbag. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Rolling on through the hour, Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's Mailbag Day on the show. We are answering Notre Dame football questions and, a few others as well from listeners today. I've got my Top Gun shirt on. Indy Forever 72 likes it. He says, when are you going to tell Jesse, son, your ego is writing checks your body can't cash? I think I just did.
Nice little Top Gun quote there.
Yes. Very well done. Very well done, Indy Forever 72. He's been throwing some Pulp Fiction references my way. Actually, the same one. Of course, it's the one that I can't say on the air, but he always reminds me anytime, go a little bit too deep on something. Domer Grizz, congrats, Jesse, first of all. Domer Grizz says, hope you can enjoy the weekend. What's the next step in the evolution of this offense? Seems like they're clicking, but I'm sure there's room to grow. What do you think is the next step for the offense?
To me, the next step in the offense is they need to master their short yardage situations. I think that's going to come up in some pivotal moments in the remaining, games left on the schedule. And then obviously if they have, and again, this is so far-fetched and down the road, but if you have postseason aspirations, you need to be a lot better in short yardage situations. That's like the real blaring thing to me is I just don't think they have an identity when it comes to 3rd and 1, 4th and
True.
1, 3rd and 2, 4th and 2. And I'd like to see them be a little bit more creative, like inside the goal line as well.
Yeah, they're a little bit better than 50% on 3rd downs, which is pretty good, but on 4th downs, they're 4 of 9, and those are predominantly short, because it's 4th down, they're short yardage type situations. There's definitely room to improve there. Like, is the Wildcat the answer? The Kenny Minchie package the answer? So I think that's a good response in terms of how they can continue to evolve. And, then the other thing is just continuing to utilize all your weapons if you're CJ Carr. And I think that's only going to come with time and his growing comfort in what he does out there. Like we talked about how successful he has been. He's completed like 65% of his passes against blitzes this year, threw a couple touchdown passes against the blitz the other day against Arkansas. And that's, a young guy, just his 4th career start. So I think we'll just continue to see more guys involved and I think an improving offensive line is part of that as well. But, like we saw from Jaden Greathouse in that stretch drive of the playoffs last year, what he can be. That is a major explosive weapon that hasn't been fully utilized yet. We started to see some more of that last week, and I think that's part of it as well, getting a guy like him more involved as a game-in, game-out factor. Domagers also says Boise's home field Smurf turf, tongue twister, is overrated. In or out on that?
I'm in on that. I think that that all blue turf is just horrific, and I think that anyone who does colored turf in general is just not a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, obviously for Boise, it works for them because they're Boise State, and you turn on the TV and you see that blue field, you know whose it is. But I'm completely in on the overrated for that. Lynn G, best wishes, Naomi and Jesse.
Thank you.
ND Blitz, we in or we out? In-N-Out Burger is the best burger chain in America. I was pretty in on In-N-Out. The last few experiences I have had there have not been so stellar. I think the last one I went to was in Vegas a couple of years ago. I'm more leaning toward Five Guys right now.
Yeah, unfortunately for me, In-N-Out is, something we don't have a lot. And so I feel like when I do have it, it's like really, really good. I would say for me, like just kind of off the top of my head, Culver's, Five Guys, Shake Shack are kind of where I'm at. I really like Shake Shack too.
I don't think I've ever had Shake Shack.
Good stuff.
Yeah. And then I missed out on Whataburger when I was coming home from Miami through Dallas as well. I got some Whataburger chicken tenders for breakfast, and they were just nasty. I wish I would have just got a burger for breakfast. It was an option at the airport in Dallas. We in or we out? Jadarian Price will return in 2026 to up his draft stock.
Oh, yeah. I think Jeremiah Love is gone and Jadarian Price comes back and he's going to be the premier back for a year.
I don't know. I mean, he's already had an Achilles injury. This is his 4th year at Notre Dame. I mean, he could come back for that, but the other side of that is, why would you risk it when I think that with minimal carries on him, he could probably easily be a second or third round type running back next year. So I'm not quite as in. Could he? Yeah, he could. I'm more out than in, though, because of the position. I think that there's a greater chance that both of these guys end up in the draft next year.
Well, I think a lot of running backs were drafted last year as well, and so I think that it was a deep class. And then if you're not a premier back, and that I'm not saying that he's not a premier back, but obviously I think Jeremiah Love
he's not the starter.
Yeah, he's going to be considered more of a premier back. So again, I just think that I don't know if a lot of teams are going to be willing to expend another draft capital on running back, especially if they did last year. So we'll see. But I guess I'm leaning towards he will be back, and it sounds like you're leaning towards he'll be drafted.
I am. That's the way I'm leaning right now. Irish Rose hit in a previous mailbag. It was acknowledged that so far this year at the national level, we've learned there aren't any very good teams yet. Is the product of college football in the top competitive divisions and conferences suffering from a reduction in quality? If so, why? I think agents and NIL plus portal usage are putting less developed players on the field than experienced players in unfamiliar systems on the field. Comments. I will just say this. I think that, and I will give myself credit for this, because I said when the transfer portal and NIL became a thing, that what it was going to do, like, this is why Nick Saban got out of coaching, because with the old system before the portal and NIL, he could just stockpile all the talent that he wanted down there, and he didn't have to worry about keeping guys happy, and he had them under lock and key. And then the portal and NIL came along, and it spread the talent out around the country. So that's what it is. It's actually brought more parity to the game, and the fact that you've got a 12-team college playoff football field helps that as well. So I think the talent is more spread out as a result of the portal and NIL, and that's why you don't have like the dominant Alabamas and even Georgias like you've had for the last several years.
Yeah, I think you summed it up pretty well there. I just think that instead of, the Alabamas, the Georgias, the Clemsons, the Ohio States kind of, sitting on a mountain of really good players, Alabama and Clemson and Ohio State used to be stocked like 1 through 3, 1 through 4. Now those guys who are maybe on the number 3 or number 4 on the depth chart are now starters elsewhere in the Power 4 conferences. And I think that's just what you're seeing. You're just seeing a redistribution of wealth amongst the Power 4 teams. And so guys who, used to sit at Alabama that were super talented and waiting for their chance are now elsewhere and getting on the field early. And I mean, you see it at Notre Dame. That's why so many of these younger guys are getting on the field early and having an impact.
Kevin Park, if Chris Ash is one and done, does Marcus Freeman hand the baton to Mike Mickens?
I think that would be the next logical decision. But I think that that's ultimately up to Marcus Freeman to determine if, Mickens is ready for that role in his career.
Yeah, and I mean, as of right now, it sure appears that Marcus Freeman is trying to do everything in his power to make sure that doesn't happen. Now, we don't know to what extent behind the scenes he's calling the shots more with the defense. The defense did look different against Arkansas the other day, so I think that his influence was there. I don't know. I don't know if he's willing to hand it off to an inexperienced guy, taking over as coordinator. But again, like, how comfortable he feels with something like that, I think will be sort of felt out as the season goes along. If they feel like there needs to be more influence than just Chris Ash on the defense. You got a Cubs update over there, good or bad?
No, it's just the bottom of the 8th, and Nico Horner just ripped this ball that would have at least got them a run. Probably would have been a triple, and Tatis somehow caught it, like running over his shoulder. So,
Carlos asking, seeing how it took a few games to get the offense and defense going, does it make you wish Notre Dame opened the season with a more manageable schedule?
Yeah, 100%.
We're going to address this, something similar to start off rapid fire. But I mean, I think absolutely, if Notre Dame did what most everybody else had done, I think it would look a lot different than, and like, I do think there's something to the fact that I think this is 5 years in a row now that Notre Dame has opened away from home. And I don't know if they're doing that intentionally. One of those games was obviously in Ireland, but like you had a first-time starting quarterback. You had to take him into a road environment. Now, part of that schedule is influenced by the ACC, putting Miami at the front and all that kind of stuff. But I definitely think that there would be something to easing into the schedule a little bit more. But like for every time you do something like that, there's going to be complaints. Why are you doing that? Why are you playing Marshall in your second game? And then of course you lose to Marshall. Why are you playing NIU in your home opener? And then you lose to NIU. This one is from John. He says, just want to say the last 2 offensive game plans might be the best I've ever seen at Notre Dame. I killed Denbrock for 2 weeks, and I think deservedly so. I got to tell you, though, I'm all in with him. I stand corrected. I don't know deservedly so because, again.
Yeah, last season.
You weren't just going to go with a first-time starting quarterback who had some turnover issues during his quarterback competition. You weren't going to go on the road against that defense and just start winging it all over the field. I think they put together that specific game plan with those short passes, the screen passes, to let CJ Carr get the ball out of his hands as quickly as possible because, like, they had the film. They knew what they saw from Miami, and Miami showed how good they were on that side of the ball. And I don't think that they wanted CJ Carr to have to stand in the pocket for 3.5 to 4.5 seconds to try to throw the ball downfield all game. So, I mean, I don't think you can kill him for that game plan. I mean, was it conservative? Yeah, but you're also on the road and a first-time starting quarterback. So I don't think they were willing to just open it up and let it rip just yet. Nothing to add to that?
No, I think I'm just I don't think that Denbrock deserved to be criticized in the first 2 games. I don't look at those games and say the offense didn't do enough to win. And I don't think that I look at those games and say Denbrock, let down his first-time starting quarterback on the road against 2 really good opponents. So, again, the offense, in my opinion, has done enough in all these games. It's just been the defense.
I'm sorry, Brian. I'm just going to disagree with you. The game plan against Miami was not terrible. Yeah, they've averaged 50 points since then, but they also 2 of those 3 games have been at home, and the other road game was against a really bad defense. And again, you're like, do you think that Notre Dame, like, everyone has ripped Notre Dame's offensive line for their performance against Miami? So if you're going to rip their offensive line for how bad they were with a really conservative game plan, do you think it would have looked better if they had asked CJ Carr to try to stand in the pocket and fend for his life with Bain bearing down on him all night long? He probably would have turned the ball over 2 or 3 times in that case if that had happened, or have been sacked 6 or 7 times if that had happened. I can't fault them for the game plan that they had when they knew that CJ Carr had turnover issues during the quarterback competition.
Yeah, and you have arguably a top 10 defensive lineman on the other side of the ball.
Exactly. Okay, so this is kind of a deep one. DBOE 34. Here is I've got to put this up on the screen. Here is the current ESPN total offense rankings. Boise State 9, NC State 58, USC 3, BC 35, Navy 15, Pitt 64, Syracuse 39, Stanford 114. If Notre Dame were to keep each one of these teams under 24 with an average margin victory of 15, do you feel that would be enough for the playoff committee to feel like the Notre Dame defense is legit at the end of the season, unlike the beginning? I know these ranks will change as we go, but I don't feel kind of long. I don't I know these ranks will change as we go along, but I do not feel great about just going 10-2 and getting a playoff spot. So, what do you think about this?
I think we're overthinking this. I think as long as Notre Dame wins the rest of their games and Miami and Texas A&M continue to do like Miami should, if Miami can stay undefeated and win the ACC and all that stuff, that bodes really well for Notre Dame. So be probably a top 2 team in the country, maybe even number 1 because the Big Ten is going to beat up on each other. And I think as long as Texas A&M goes, obviously you want Texas A&M to be undefeated and win the SEC and all that stuff too. So I think it's more predicated. Notre Dame needs to win the rest of these games, and obviously the defense needs to get better along the way. But I think the biggest factor along the rest of this season is how Miami and Texas A&M do, because you want them to basically be like top 5 opponents, and you lost combined to them by 4 points in your first 2 games of the season.
Yeah.
So exactly. I don't think it matters too much of what the defense has given up there, here, there, average points and all that stuff. Just win the rest of the games and hope Miami and Texas A&M finish as best as possible.
Especially Miami, but even Texas A&M was a 1-point game, and obviously the 2 games by a combined 4. But you do need those 2 to essentially prove that they were that good to help you out on the back end. And there's a legit chance that Stymie says Miami should be number 1 if they win. This weekend, and there's a good chance that they could end up being number 1 at some point, and that will definitely help Notre Dame out. Brian had a response. He said run the ball was an option too. I will agree with that. I will give you that. I will concede that in the Miami game plan. That's like the one thing that was, to me, the most baffling was the fact that they didn't commit to the run more. Because even in the second half, when you start the second half down by a couple of touchdowns, it's still early in the second half. You still had plenty of time. You didn't have to just abandon running the ball. They could have done more of that. So I will give you that point. I agree. Indy 2019. First, congratulations to the family. Ding, ding. Second, how much do you put this season on the schedule? Was it a mistake to put the 2 biggest games at the front of the schedule?
Well, the thing is you never know what those teams are going to be. These games are scheduled so far out in advance. Obviously, you put the games on the schedule, and a lot of it's based on kind of like the algorithm of where the other pieces fit into the schedule. So, Miami and Texas A&M being up front is, a mathematical combination thing, and then them being also really good this season, maybe compared to seasons of the past is another kind of like mathematical combination. And so you take both those combinations and put them together, and it's like you just can't predict that that's what's going to happen.
All these games were scheduled when different people were head coaches, and in Notre Dame's case, there was a different athletic director, and in Texas A&M's case, there was a different athletic director, and I'm pretty sure in Miami's case, there was a different. It's like these games are scheduled a long time ago. Now, Miami is also part of the ACC agreement, so again, like part of Miami and where they show up on the schedule, the ACC also has a hand in that. And yes, Joe, that this is what I was getting to next, is the fact that these other schools play conference schedules and their conferences are getting bigger all the time. So like with Texas A&M specifically, since Notre Dame does have a conference scheduling arrangement with Miami / the ACC, for Texas A&M, and like Wisconsin is going to be at the front of the schedule. When they've played Georgia, it's at the front of the schedule. Alabama, Texas, all these games are going to be at the front of the schedule because that's when all these conferences schedule their non-conference games. So there's not much you can do about that. And again, like you can't, when you're scheduling these things 8 to 10 years sometimes in advance, you don't know exactly how good these teams are going to be when they show up at the front of the schedule. You expect them to be pretty good, but the fact that you ended up with back-to-back games like this, you can't necessarily predict it. They also say, should Notre Dame explore a 13th independent game with UConn? Does this do anything?
No and no.
No. Like are we saying like play this conference championship weekend? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I think that's what it is, but it's just UConn isn't a data point. It just wouldn't mean anything.
It does nothing for you. All that does is, like, anyone from the conferences who want to cry that Notre Dame needs to be in a conference championship game need to realize that Ohio State was also not in a conference championship game last year and went to the national championship game. Indiana was not in a conference championship game last year and made the college football playoff. There were only 4 Power 4 champions and a group of 6 champions. So that is 5 total conference champions that were in the playoff last year. That means there were 7 total teams that were not conference champions, and many of them also did not play in their conference championship game last year. So I think that is just a moot point. If Notre Dame has a good enough resume, they'll be in. They don't need to worry about that 13th data point that a lot of conference people want to whine about. This offense is exciting, they say. If Kyron Williams, my favorite Notre Dame running back in recent history, was on this team, how do the running back reps get split? Man, that's a good question.
I think it's just 50-50, I think it'd be a little bit more difficult because I think that Love and Price have really good, like they complement each other really well in their style of run. And I think that I don't know that Kyron Williams would complement Jeremiah Love that well. I mean, he would, but it'd just be a different kind of compliment, I guess.
Yeah. Okay, so this one is from Dying Mikey. I was anxious about the defense going into Arkansas, going up against their offense. There were some people that picked Arkansas to win, and most people had it be a close game because of the matchup. But now that they've smoked Arkansas, I feel like people have changed their tone and kind of act like they expected it all along because Arkansas is bad. There's definitely been some of that. Do you think the defense is getting enough credit for holding Arkansas to 13 points? Probably not.
I don't think think they're getting enough credit. And what I would come back to is just look at the Ole Miss box score and look at kind of, basically look at what Arkansas's offense was before that Notre Dame game and who they did it against. I know Memphis is a group of 4 team, but they're a strong group of 4 team. And I think Ole Miss, obviously now being the ranked number 4 in the country and beating LSU and having, Ole Miss's defense is ultimately what won that game for them against LSU. And so the fact that they couldn't do the same against Arkansas and Notre Dame did better, I think bodes well for Notre Dame.
Arkansas had 526 yards of offense and scored 35 points against Ole Miss. Ole Miss is currently ranked number 4 in the nation after their win over LSU last weekend. Taylon Green threw for 305 yards and a touchdown. He also ran for 115 yards and a touchdown against Ole Miss. He approached none of those numbers. Their offense was held not even under 500 yards, which they were averaging over 500. They didn't even get to 400 yards against Notre Dame. And against what is now the number 4 team in the nation, they had 526 yards of total offense. So, yeah, I completely agree that Notre Dame is getting undersold in terms of what their defense did against Arkansas last week because everyone just wants to say, oh, bad team. They were supposed to do it. Well, Ole Miss is the number 4 team in the nation, and Arkansas had a really good offensive day against what is now the number 4 team in the nation. They had a very subpar day against Notre Dame's defense, which had been really suspect going into that game. Freeman said the last 2 weeks, this question comes from DBOE 34. He said the last 2 weeks he learned how Ash is in the fire. He was happy with his efforts and competitiveness. Sources in the Goog have stated that the coaches stand behind Ash, believe in him due to how he has handled adversity, not pushing blame, etc. To me, this helps understand that what Marcus said at the podium the first few weeks and what he did behind the scenes may have been different. Do you get the same feeling as I, or have you heard from sources that Freeman really put Ash's feet to the fire to perform now and that he has a quote-unquote short leash? That is
I think that's a pretty heavy hit and loaded question.
I mean, all I will say is we know that Freeman talked about having that uncomfortable meeting with the defensive staff the day after Purdue. Whether he put his feet to the fire, whether he has a short leash, however you want to term these things. I think the fans want him to have a short leash, and they, really want his feet held to the fire. But everything Marcus Freeman has said publicly goes against that. I do think that Marcus Freeman had more influence on what they were doing defensively than maybe what he had the first 3 weeks of the season. So however you want to take that.
Yeah, I think that, obviously if it were up to a lot of the fans, Chris Ash would have been fired after the Texas A&M game. It's just, I don't think that anyone deserves that short of a leash. And I think that it's a tough first 2 opponents for a guy that's stepping into being a defensive coordinator for the first time in a little bit, right? And so we saw a little bit of struggle early on with Marcus Freeman and Al Golden, right? And so, maybe not as bad as what Chris Ash was, but at the same time, you still got to give the guy the opportunity to fight through adversity, to, kind of, again, go to work and prove himself almost. And I think that's almost what it was for Marcus Freeman. It wasn't, I'm going to hold your feet to the fire and you better do this or you're going to be fired. I think he just challenged him to be better, and obviously Chris Ash is a competitive guy too, where he's not trying to go out there and have these type of performances. And I think knowing that his name or stamp is on this defense, he's going to want to fix it more than anyone else. And I think that's the tough part about all this is everyone wants to kind of jump on the guy and almost kind of kick him when he's down. But obviously, too, he's still learning and wants to get better and be competitive and all those things. And so I think we do need to give the guy a little bit of grace here and, give him the opportunity to really figure things out with the talent that's on Notre Dame's defense.
You missed stock up, stock down yesterday. We talked about Chris Ash. Do you give him a stock up for what happened against Arkansas, or do you need to see more to see if it's actually, something that continues?
I mean, I think when you're defining stock up, stock down, you're not saying how high or low you're putting it. I think you can definitely say if he only marginally got better, they still got better. So I would say his stock marginally went up, and so I obviously do want to see more and for him to build off of it, but he got better. And it was after Marcus Freeman publicly kind of challenged him and the rest of the defense to be better. And they came out and held a really good offense on the road, while they made some mental mistakes, a couple drops here and there. I hate when people point that sort of stuff out because it's going to go both ways. Like Miami's dude catching that one-handed touchdown isn't going to happen out of 10 plays, just like Arkansas dropping a pass isn't going to happen 9 out of 10 plays. So those things are going to balance each other out over the course of the season. You deserve to get some breaks, in my opinion. And it at the same time,
you're still passes too,
Yeah, and you're still going to force them to be in that position. Maybe Notre Dame did enough to push Taylor Green off his landmark on that throw, or maybe they disrupted the running back enough or the wide receiver enough. They dropped a pass. I don't know, but those things, again, you're going to win some of those, get some lucky breaks, and you're going to get some unfortunate breaks throughout the season.
Balance out over the course of the season.
Yeah. And so I really thought the defense looked a lot better. I thought they did a good job of creating pressure. I liked the way that their blitzes were. And obviously when they ran more man and got out of zone, I thought they were really good. So I think the most important part from what Chris Ash should have learned against Arkansas is now you have really good plays on tape of what's working. And so let's build off of that, let's build off of what these guys are doing really well. And I think last week as well, it helped to have Devontae Smith back. It helped, to have a Don Schuler in for a whole game. And quite honestly, it helped to just say, F it, we're going to start Tay Johnson as well.
David just can't let it go. He says everything balances out, even when your son schedules his wedding during a Notre Dame game. We will wrap up the first hour in the mailbag on that. We've got plenty more coming up in hour number 2. Wow, we were actually pushing into hour number 2 right now, but we've got more coming up. Rapid fire is on the way. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com and minimal commercial breaks today. It's hour 2 of Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. And that means one thing and one thing only. Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
Let's take this week on home. There's a lot to get to in this rapid fire.
There is a lot to get to in this rapid fire, and we'll see how much that we are able to get to. So this kind of came up a little bit a couple of different times, dancing around this topic in the mailbag portion of the show tonight. If you were to flip Notre Dame's schedule, so they opened with Purdue and Arkansas and then played Miami and Texas A&M, what do you think their record would be?
I'm not going to go out there and say, immediately 4-0. I don't think that's what's going to happen. So I think at minimum they go 3-1. And the game that I'd be willing to concede is Texas A&M. I don't think that if Notre Dame had the opportunity to play Texas A&M again a couple games into the season, I especially at home, I don't see them losing that game again. Considering what that game came down to, a lot of the defensive errors that we saw. So I'll commit to 3-1. I'm not going to go the perfect 4-0. I think Miami would be a tough game regardless. I think they'd just pick up the Texas A&M game.
I think it's 3-1 worst case scenario as well. I do think about this though. Like when we talk about the offense that Arkansas has had, if that is game number 2 and
it's basically the same thing as Texas A&M.
Yeah, is Chris Ash still figuring out the defense at that point? Does Arkansas and Talon Green give this offense, give Notre Dame's defense a few more fits than what we just saw last weekend, if that's game number 2 instead of game number 4? So I think maybe Arkansas has a little bit more offensive success. I feel like they still win that game. I feel like Purdue, because it's an opener, you've got a new head coach over there. Again, as we all know, you've got a new defensive coordinator here. Again, I think Purdue maybe is a little bit more successful offensively in game number 1, but it's also a home game. So maybe you don't have this, some of the same constraints and handcuffs on CJ Carr as what you had at Miami in a night road game and all those kind of things. So I think that they're 3-1. I think that they get one of those 2 wins and more likely Texas A&M to me than Miami. So I think we're kind of on the same page.
Yes.
Joe, I missed this. I apologize. I scrolled past it accidentally when we were doing the mailbag, and he just said that I need to make sure and get this in there so that Jesse can see what he's facing when it comes to being a married man. So I'm gonna pull this up here, and I'm gonna get this in real quickly. This is from Joe Allen. He says, asking for a friend. The in-laws booked a trip to Miami, airfare and Airbnb for the entire family the week of New Year's. The lucky chance that Notre Dame made it into that bracket, 6th or 11th seed, and won, they would advance to the Orange Bowl. So the question is, would you ditch the family and buy tickets to the Orange Bowl for you and your son? Side note, we skipped the family Christmas on that side last year to go to the playoff game in South Bend. So,
Ooh.
Jesse, this is right up the old alley. If you're married, year 1, and Naomi's family, is like, hey, we're all going to hang out in Miami for New Year's. Would you skip out and go to the Orange Bowl while you're there if Notre Dame is there?
I would skip out and go if I didn't skip out the year before. I don't think you can skip out back-to-back years. I think that's when you're really going to get yourself into trouble. I have never skipped out, and so I would feel comfortable doing my first skip. And the in-laws know how much I enjoy Notre Dame football, and I don't think they'd give me too hard of a time.
Yeah, I'm far enough down the line that, look, you're there in Miami anyway.
But
right?
You also have a more valid excuse because you can pull the work card as well.
True. That's absolutely right, because that happens quite a bit as well when we're doing family events. If there's a Notre Dame game on, I have to, sit and, we're obviously not just sitting there and, doing shots and whatever else. Like
this week.
What's that?
Maybe this weekend we can
Maybe this weekend. Is there a
some of that.
TV in the Gervasi area, by the way?
No TV or phones.
Wait, do we have to check our phones when we walk in the door? Is that going to be like, do we have to put them in the sealed bags? Like when
all I know is if you were caught by Naomi on your phone during the reception, you might as well not show your face.
Oh boy. Things are getting rough. Are there going to be signs that say this when we go down there?
I think there is going to say at least something that says, please put your phones away.
Okay.
During I
would just
it's
say
like a movie, you don't want your phone going off during the reception.
Yeah. Well, the ceremony.
The ceremony. The
ceremony is one thing. The reception's another.
The ceremony that's what I meant. The ceremony, not the reception. Take everything I say and replace it with ceremony.
I know you don't even know where you're going to be this weekend. So Jesse has scolded all of us about read the 8-page book that we have sent you for the details. And then when pressed, Jesse doesn't even know the details that are in.
I do know the details.
Book. Okay, maybe you've gone and brushed up. To answer Joe's question, though, taking my job status out of this, let's say I'm just Joe and I'm down there with family. It's only about 6 hours out of the weekend. Like to go to the game, it's more than just being there for 3 hours. Like the whole commitment's about 6 hours. Like, are they really going to miss you for 6 hours? I would do it. I would go to the game.
I think that if I told everyone I'd bring them back something cool, they'd be even more on board.
There you go. Case in point. Okay, so after missing 2 games due to injury, Notre Dame slot corner Devontae Smith returned to action last week against Arkansas. Fighting Irish head coach Marcus Freeman talked about Devontae Smith this week.
Yeah, he is. He's obviously a little bit bigger physically than Jordan was, but the experience he has playing in big games and big moments, the understanding, he knows a lot of defense. He has experience playing all different types of defense, and so he knows the type of techniques you got to play with. He's aware of what things can hurt certain calls and coverages, so he can play faster than a guy that's still trying to figure out exactly what the coach wants out of this play call or this defense. And so it's great to have him out here. He's a really good football player. He's a talented football player. He plays the game fast and plays with velocity.
All right, so there he is, Marcus Freeman on Devontae Smith. Scale of 1 to 10. How important is Smith to the Fighting Irish secondary?
I'm not gonna go crazy here and say it's a 10 out of 10, but I'd be willing to give this a solid 8.5 out of 10. And the reason why is let's go through the checklist. First of all, recruited by Miami, check 1. That was probably during the Nick Saban era where he was still probably
You mean Alabama?
Sorry, that's what I meant. What did I say?
You said Miami. That's what
I don't know.
I'm sure he was recruited by a lot of schools, but he played at Alabama. Yes.
That's what I just chugged a lot of coffee, so I think that's probably where my brain is at.
Okay, that's
so recruited by Nick Saban, played at Alabama. Okay, check. He's a talent, right? Number 2. That would be a check is he's got a lot of big game experience, a lot of just in-game experience, playing against really good teams in the SEC. And now, with Notre Dame early on in their season. And then the last one would be is just he's got the talent, he's got the familiarity. And like Marcus Freeman said, the ability to play multiple, he knows how to play zone. He knows how to play man. He knows, how to maybe cover up some of the deficiencies and that sort of stuff. He checks all of the boxes that you want out of a guy that is coming in as a transfer player. He's played in big time games. He has the talent. He has the experience. He has, you can keep going down the list. And I think that's what makes him overall really important is especially when you have a lot of young guys that are transitioning into the secondary as well.
And I do think, and I didn't even mention this when we were just talking about the topic, if you flip-flop the games, Purdue and Arkansas up front on the schedule, and then Miami and Texas A&M afterwards, if you factored in Devontae Smith into that whole thing, he would have been playing against Texas A&M, which he did not do in the first Texas A&M. And I do think he makes a big difference in terms of, some of those explosive plays. Now, was he a complete eraser last week against Arkansas? No, there were still some coverage issues from time to time, but I just this is an 8 to me. Getting him back and then getting Leonard Moore back is going to be, that's still I think you've got to remember those two guys missed 2 games in a row, both of them, not just Smith, not just Moore, but both of those guys. So now you get Smith back, and this is a really physical guy who plays much bigger than his 5'11" frame, and that's important when you're talking about those slot receivers, being able to have that kind of physicality.
You got to jam these guys off the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, exactly. So it's an 8 to me. I think that he made a big difference against Arkansas last week, and he's going to continue to make a big difference going forward. And I mean, go ahead.
I'm not sure if you caught much of the Monday night games, and I can't remember. No, I can remember. Orlovsky and I think Riddick, Louis Riddick, they did the first game with Fowler, and they talked about, I can't remember who was playing a lot of zone, but one of the teams was playing zone, and Riddick made the comment of, when you're playing zone, and I've talked about this before, and it seems so simple, you have to get hands on these guys or reroute them because it knocks them off the zone that they're trying to get to, right? And it gives your defenders the ability to recover and kind of cover into that zone a little bit more. And so when you're talking about rerouting, you want someone like Devontae Smith at the line of scrimmage to get hands-on and be physical, so it's not just a free release and these guys can run with their hair on fire to the zone.
That's something that, quite frankly, they haven't done enough of. So
yeah, and that falls on the linebackers too, especially when guys are working over the middle of the field. You have to knock these guys off their landmark and reroute them, just getting a hand on them, grazing them. So again, they have to now readjust their body, get back online, and try to find their zone. It gives the defenders, a little bit more time to recover.
Notre Dame running backs coach Jaywan Sider was asked yesterday about Jeremiah Love's penchant for hurdling defenders. We've seen a lot of the hurdling from Jeremiah Love, and there's been some talk about it. Here's what Sider has said to Love about the hurdling. Quote, "If you're going to do something, do it. I said, I'll tell you if you're doing something too much. When you have a gift like that, you don't take that away." He went on to say, "What I don't do is ever restrict a player who's gifted, and it's so easy. You coach them hard, but there's a fine line." End quote. So what do you think of that approach from Jaywan Sider?
I think that's the perfect approach. I think, a lot of people are concerned about, Jeremiah Love kind of having this knack for the home run play or the wow play, the hurdling, the spinning, the finesse stuff. Here's what I'll say. Until it burns him, I have nothing wrong with Jeremiah Love doing those plays, until he fumbles or maybe takes a bad hit because of the hurdle, he's going to have to learn the hard way. But I'm on the same thought logic of Sider is, why take a tool out of someone's tool bag for no reason at the end of the day? Just let him be Jeremiah Love, but also put the coaching in there. Maybe it's like, hey, you got a real great spin move, but let's be more situational about the spin move or the hurdle. Let's use it specifically so you're not just hurdling to hurdle, and now guys are anticipating you to hurdle and you get your head knocked off. I think that's more or less the conversation. You're not taking away the tool, just use it more situationally.
Right.
And not make it something that you're trying to do every time.
Because that's sometimes where, where Jeremiah Love maybe goes a little bit overboard with it. It's like, okay, now you're trying to hurdle every guy trying to get out of the backfield. You can't just hurdle your way out of everything, but like he brought up when they were down by the goal line last week and he tried to kind of jump into the pile. And it's like, if you're going to jump, do it. You've got that in your toolbox. Don't be in between. Either go all in or, let's do something else. But, he also, he kind of talked about how there are so many different things that Jeremiah Love can do. But I like the fact that he's letting the players be themselves and not trying to put shackles on them and kind of keep them inside a box. There are a lot of different ways that Jeremiah Love can beat you. And when defenders and defensive coordinators see that hurdle on film, like, you've got to be aware of that, but you also have to be aware of the fact that he can lower his shoulder and run through you as well. So I love it. I love the fact that he's letting his guys be his guys and not trying to take what are natural parts of their games away from them. We'll take our only break this hour, and then we've got a long finish to Rapid Fire coming up tonight. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com, and Rapid Fire continues right after this. We continue Budweiser's Weekday Sportsbeat with IrishBreakdown.com. It's Rapid Fire with Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. Brent jumping in the chat. Haven't seen old Brent in the YouTube chat for a while. Who's the better combo? J Love and JD Price or Reggie Bush and Lindale White? What do you think about that one, Jess?
I think this is an easy one. Reggie Bush and Lindale White. You're talking about the greatest college running back of all time.
You consider Reggie Bush the greatest college running back of all time?
He's up there. I think Price is probably better than Lindale White, but I think Reggie Bush, like 1-2 combo, I think that maybe it's Price makes it closer. But again, Reggie Bush was again one of the most dynamic, best running backs of college football of all time. And we'll see. Maybe this year, if Jeremiah Love somehow sneaks out a Heisman, things change. But
I think, David says Barry Sanders is laughing at you. I think that there's a case for Reggie Bush over Barry Sanders as a college running back. Obviously, NFL is completely.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. College. I think
Barry had basically 1.5 really good seasons, and other than that, he was off to the NFL, which is fine. But Archie Griffin, Herschel Walker, Bo Jackson. There's a lot of really good. Archie Simpson. The only O.J. Simpson, another great one. I mean, but I would give the slight edge to Bush and Lindale White because they were so productive, but I also think that it helps like all that talent that they had around them. Like they were so hard to defend. Obviously, they had a couple of really good quarterbacks as well. So I would give the slight edge to them because they ultimately produced over time. It wasn't just like a one-hit wonder type deal. They did it over time, and like Reggie Bush was a freaking explosive highlight machine when he was there. I mean, Jeremiah Love and Jadarian Price are both obviously very good in their own right, but I think that Bush and Lindale White, whenever you think of USC, you've got to put them like in terms of, like to your point, like whether Reggie Bush is the best running back of all time. And I think that that's very like, at least maybe of your lifetime, he is, like Ricky Williams, another one who just came to mind, really good at Texas. There have been a lot of great ones, but in terms of running back tandems, I think that might be one of the best 1-2 punches, along with like Chubb and Michelle maybe, but I think even Bush and Lindale White are ahead of them. I think that Love Price are probably going to end up being ahead of Chubb and Michelle by the time it's all said and done. I would feel comfortable with that. Hey, don't forget, we've got Notre Dame Boise State kicking off at 3:30 this weekend at Notre Dame Stadium, and the game day coverage starts at 11 a.m. Eastern time, live from the linebacker. Tim, Jim, Eric, and Tyler will all be there. They're guests this week. Former Notre Dame receivers Javen Hunter and Malcolm Johnson. Former Notre Dame All-American defensive back Bobby Taylor as well. So join him at the linebacker starting at 11 a.m. this Saturday. Do you know who Javen Hunter is?
I do not.
Other than former Notre Dame wide receiver. Do you know who he is the father of by any chance?
No.
The one, Jaden Ivey.
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yes. So he will be there, or I don't know if he'll be there. Well, I guess he probably will, because usually for the home games they have guys in attendance who come in. So that's your guest list. Join them. If you can't join them at the linebacker, tune in. Sports Radio, WSBT. So former Irish cornerback Jaden Mickey is now at Boise State. He unfortunately suffered a concussion in last week's win over Appalachian State, and his status for his return to Notre Dame for this week's game is uncertain. Here is Marcus Freeman on his relationship with his former player.
And Mickey, if he's going to be available to play, he's going to find a way to play on Saturday. But all I care about is his health. Love his family, and have been through some tough times with that young man. And so, these guys, I often make sure they understand they're not cars, right? Like, you don't rent them for a couple years and then when they leave, that's it, right? That's it. You sold them, it's done. Like, these are relationships that last forever, right? You invest into these young people, and for the rest of our lives, we're going to have a relationship just like you do with every one of your players.
So what do you think about that answer, Jess?
Yeah, I think that's a great answer. And I think that overall shows why so many of these guys are attracted to Marcus Freeman and Notre Dame is Marcus Freeman makes it a point to connect with you personally. And again, kind of be like that dad away from home for a lot of these guys, like a central role model, father figure. And again, to me, that's the difference between him and Brian Kelly. It's just the relationship that he establishes with the players. The players trust him. They want to look up to him as a role model. Again, someone who's young, African-American, has played college football, has a good track record. And again, I think that's the difference that you're seeing on the field is if you can trust your head coach and you want to play for your head coach, the results are going to show on the field. And so I really like the analogy of, this isn't like a rental of a car. You're not just going to use a car for a couple of years and then just throw it away. Like, you develop relationships with these guys, even if it means, they're in and out for a year or two and then they're going off to another place. Marcus Freeman wants nothing but the best for Jaden Mickey. And again, he went through a tough time, with all the family health concerns that went on, during Jaden
away last year.
Yeah. And so it's, Marcus Freeman was obviously there for a guy, young man, through a tough time in his life. And that connection or bond just doesn't go away because he transfers somewhere else.
I thought it was a great answer. When he said, these guys are not cars. Like, I think that was the perfect analogy. You don't just rent them for a short amount of time and then they're disposable and you move on after they're gone. And they are, you did build a relationship with them. And like Jaden Mickey, I think we mentioned this once or twice. He finished school at Notre Dame last spring. He was in the stands at the Blue Gold game last year. After he obviously left the team in the fall semester. Like, that's the only real kind of, I think that doesn't sit well with some people. The fact that he pulled the plug on himself in the middle of the season because he wasn't playing enough, especially when they could have used him after that. But he finished school and he was at the Blue Gold game. When we were walking into the press conference, we saw him coming out of the stands after the Blue Gold game. So, so he was still around. He was there, watching his former teammates and all that kind of stuff. And, like Tay Johnson, he spoke with the media yesterday and he said, I'd run through fire for Marcus Freeman. And I think that when you hear Marcus Freeman say things like that and you hear players say stuff like that, you can see why, there is such a bond between at the end of the day. So hopefully Jaden Mickey's able to play this weekend. It would be nice to see him be able to, to come back and play against the Irish inside Notre Dame Stadium one last time. But you never know with the concussion protocols. Jesse is having yapper issues. ND Forever too got a question in at right across the wire. He submitted it in the Champions Lounge, and I apologize. I did not hit my refresh button, and so I did not see it before the show started. Thanks for reminding me that it is in there. So here's a couple questions that he had that we didn't get to in the mailbag. What's your confidence level? This defense continues to improve. They still don't get a lot of pressures up front. Linebackers not playing downhill/aggressive, and zone coverage still lacks.
My confidence level going forward is a solid 8 out of 10. Ever since Marcus Freeman at halftime versus Purdue got a little angry and put his foot in the ground, we've seen not a completely different defense, but a much improved defense. I think they're going to start building off those things. You're getting a lot of young players experience. You're getting a lot of your better players back from injuries early on. Leonard Moore, Devontae Smith, like we talked about. I think the linebackers are going to get better as they kind of settle into this defense and their roles. I do agree that they haven't been playing very well downhill, especially in their run reads and filling the gaps. And I think that they need to get out of zone coverage. I think they just need to continue to be aggressive, aggressive along the defensive line and aggressive in man-to-man coverage, jamming guys off the line of scrimmage, getting them off their landmarks, and playing. Notre Dame is a man defense. And I think that they only need to pull out zone situationally, kind of how they did last year, But the zone just needs to be better. That doesn't mean you need to run it more. It just needs to be better when you do decide to run it. They don't need to be this team that's splitting between 50-50 man zone. They need to be predominantly man and pull out zone when it's needed.
And I think that there's going to be less reason to play zone going forward because you're not going to see a Marcel Reed or a Taylon Green on the schedule. Maybe, like Mailbag for USC and the NC State quarterback a little bit, but like that's you need to play more zone because of those dual threat guys, because of the concern with them taking off and running. So I think that there's more reason to continue to play man-to-man. My confidence level, you're a little bit more confident than me. Mine's a 7, but I will say, again, they got Devontae Smith back. Once they get Leonard Moore back, and they've got Devontae Smith, Leonard Moore, and Christian Gray, as well as Tay Johnson and Adon Schuler as their starters in the secondary. That's really good 5 guys in your secondary.
That's what I mean. But when you get a healthy Leonard Moore, Devontae Smith, Tay Johnson, Adon Schuler, and Christian Gray, that's a solid 5.
Yeah. Linebackers do need to continue to pick up the play, and that's kind of the next step for me, I think.
Do you remember when I told you to buy stock on Zach Markery? Or did I say that right?
Mark Zachary. You turned
Mark Zachary.
A little dyslexia there.
I told you to buy stock, and he had a really good game last week, comparatively.
He did. Much improved last week. You're absolutely right. And I think that, that's like
that only is going to help, though, because he's getting those reps in.
He's been baptized by fire now. And and you're also going to maybe have some Dallas Golden kind of. Brent just put it in right as I said it, with him dabbling in there as well. So, again, like the piece getting Devontae Smith back, it's just going to I think that starting with that, and then you get Leonard Moore.
I think we finally found the rotation that we want in the secondary, what pairings work, what groups need to be out there together. But also at the same time, you've developed some good young backup talent between Golden and Zachary.
1 to 10, ND Forever 72 is asking, confidence level, Notre Dame running the table in the regular season.
I'm going to put this at a solid 8.5 out of 10. Notre Dame's going to be favored in the rest of their games. I think the only hiccups I could see, I had worries about playing Pittsburgh and Syracuse back to back, but now that Stephen Jelly is hurt and Syracuse is just, I don't think, going to be the same offensively. I'm not so much worried about that, but I am really worried about NC State and USC back to back. I think that's what gives me the most pause. But the best thing about that is both of those games are at home. Notre Dame has 3 straight games at home to really get back on track. And then after that, you've got Boston College, Navy, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, Stanford. I have to go a solid 8.5 out of 10. If they play how they did against Arkansas the rest of the way, they'll win every single game.
I'm the same. Maybe I'll take away the 0.5 point that you're giving them for the 8.5, but I'd go 8. I mean, USC is the biggest concern to me. They've got the best offense, bar none, the rest of the way. The question is going to be, will they be able to slow Notre Dame down enough? I think that game is going to end up being a shootout. I mean, Notre Dame's defense was a lot better last year, and it turned into a shootout with a first-time starting quarterback. So it's an 8 for me. Biggest concern is USC coming up in a couple of weeks. ND Forever also says, here's to some wedding crashers showing up at the wedding, and congrats, Jesse. Speaking of which, David wants to know, what time is the reception? Are you willing to give that out?
Reception starts at 2:30 p.m.
If you tell people that, they'll actually be there for the wedding.
Now you're leaking trade secrets.
They will be crashing. Notre Dame wore the all-white uniforms against Arkansas last week. Are you in or out on the all-white look replacing the white top, gold pant as the permanent road uniform?
I know a lot of people have the nostalgia with wearing the gold pants and probably want to see them every, regardless of home or away. I am all in on the all whites, especially on the road. I think that it's a clean, crisp look. I'm a big fan of the all whites. So this is an easy question for myself. A lot of people are going to say, a lot of people get caught up in like the voodoo of jerseys, like, oh, they don't play well for this or that, or but I think the all white is a great look. I don't think you can go wrong with it. And they still have the gold in the helmets. They still have the gold on the jerseys for kind of like the outline and stuff like that. So I love it. I can't say enough about the all white look.
I like it as well. It's a good look. I would be in on this. I don't think that they would just totally ditch the gold pants, but I think the all white look is a better look than the white top, gold bottom. The twist that I would put on it that I've talked about, we haven't seen them, even though they've gone to these all green and green top, white pant uniforms, and they're going to wear green obviously this weekend against Boise State. Brent is asking, will it be all green? I don't know if it's officially going to be all green or if they'll go green with white pants or not, but I would like to see them throw some green numbers on the white jersey from time to time.
Same.
I think
go back to those Shamrock jerseys that they used against Arizona State down in Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
All white, green numbers, gold outline.
Really good look.
Fantastic.
Really good look. That's right. Fill in the blank. It's blank that Texas A&M running back Le'Veon Moss told Paul Feinbaum this about playing at Notre Dame Stadium. Quote, "It was pretty cool. It ain't nothing like Kyle Field, though. It got pretty loud, but it ain't like Kyle Field. Their fans ain't like ours." End quote.
I think that's easy to say when you win. I don't think he'd be saying the same thing when they lost. But I mean, I can't say that I disagree. I mean, Kyle Field is known as being the 12th man, one of the toughest road environments in all of college football. So it's like nothing really compares to that. It's not like Ohio State, Alabama, Georgia. Like, I feel like he would say the same about all those different programs. It's just, and I don't even think it's silly. I just think it's the honest truth. Like, it's hard to play at Texas A&M. That's why it gets so much publicity, but
it was built up.
Yeah, the only part that's maybe a little bit silly is, their fans aren't like our fans. It's just, I think every fan is the same. It's just a matter of, how many people are there and how hard you're cheering the entire game. And you have to understand, like, Texas A&M, that probably the average age of the fan at Texas A&M is a lot different than the average fan age of the fans at Notre Dame games, right? Like, you have more.
The average age at a Notre Dame game is a little bit older, like
a little bit older
demographic.
A little bit older, and you're probably not fitting as many people inside the stadium as you are at Kyle Field.
Well,
so again, it makes sense.
A little bit bigger capacity, and they're at Kyle Field. The structure of the stadium makes a difference. I think Notre Dame has become a louder place with the addition of the big video board at one end, because it extends up, and then you've got press boxes on both sides that extend up, so it holds some of that noise in differently than it used to. But like at Kyle Field and some of those other places like that, it's a straight up type situation, and the noise just gets trapped in there a little bit differently. And it feels like they play a few more night games probably down there, so they're used to getting lubed up, and they've got all those crazy cadets and all that different stuff. They do things a little bit differently down there at Kyle Field. So I mean, it's not a completely nutso thing, but at the same time, I mean, it's fair, because if there's one knock on Notre Dame Stadium, traditionally it's been that it doesn't get quite loud enough and quite rowdy enough in there at times. I think it's been a lot better in recent years, and especially for night games. So, I mean, he would know. He's played in both of them.
So before we continue on here, I don't know when we're out today. I don't know if it's the standard 6:55.
In about 5 minutes.
I would like to sneak in my own off the cusp rapid fire question, a little fair or foul. So if you could leave me the last 2 minutes, that would be great.
Just throw one in right now. Just go ahead. You might as well.
All right. So this morning, I mean, obviously we all know, getting married this Saturday. So this morning had my last barber appointment before the wedding, 8 a.m. this morning. Went and got a nice new haircut and all that stuff. And my barber knew it was my wedding because I just saw him a few weeks ago. And I was like, hey, I'm going to book another one here soon. That's just, I want you to clean me up for my wedding. He's like, okay, cool. And then I walked in today and he's like, oh, big wedding cut. And then we were talking about it, Fair or foul, I asked him while I was in there. I said, hey, do you mind just kind of cleaning up my face while I'm here? Give me a fresh shave, maybe make sure my eyebrows are all good and trim up this little fake mustache I got going on. And his response was, I don't think I'll have time today. I'm pretty busy. Is that fair or foul?
I think this is totally foul. He knew you were coming in for like the wedding groom. Like, he knew this was it, right?
You're right. And it's, again, I'm not asking him to like shape up a beard or like I have stubble
Right.
and I'm just asking him to just take it all off. You know, it's like you just
Right.
put the cream on, you get the straight razor and you just go boom. Like maybe 4 or 5 minutes we're talking here.
And like, this is your guy, right? Like, you
Yeah, I've been
go
going to this guy for at least a year and a half now.
Yeah, I think this is totally foul. He's got to make the time for a regular customer to get him ready for the biggest day of his life. I think it's totally foul.
And I think it's I
think
was
it's
a little
foul enough that I would stop going there, honestly.
I was a bit caught off guard. I was like, he very much was like, didn't think twice about it and was like, yeah, I don't think I'll have time for that today. And I was like, what? Like, I always tip him well. I'm always obviously loyal to the guy. Like, I was just really caught off guard. I was like, I don't know if he's just having a bad day or what, but like, I don't feel like 4 extra minutes to shave.
He's playing the other side. He said that's an extra service. So you should have talked about it when you booked the appointment so that he could arrange for extra time if you needed to.
Yeah, I get that. But again, it's like we're talking about some quick stubble and he knows the situation.
Feels like 5 minutes. Like, how long does it really take to do that? You know?
And it's not like he was giving me my full usual haircut, you know, like, because again, I was just in there a few weeks ago. So he was just touching stuff up. I don't know. I was kind of mad about it, to be honest with you.
I don't blame you. I don't blame you. So are you going to find a barber shop like on Friday to, you know, in the area to see if you can find someone?
Yeah, I really don't want to do it myself because I don't want to give myself like razor burn or bumps potentially.
I don't blame you. You're right, Andy Forever. He is no Floyd from Mayberry. That's right. Floyd the barber. I don't know if Jesse got that reference, so I had to.
But the thing is like I lived in Cleveland we've been living in Cleveland now for like 4.5 years. It took me like the first 2.5, 3 years to find a barber that I like. So that's the thing is like I went through a lot of barbers to get to this guy. I finally like him, and I feel like he just really let me down.
Do you tip him well?
I do. I always give him at least 20% on top of an expensive haircut.
All right. Yeah, I feel like that's a little outside the lines. If you're the barber and you're letting down a regular customer
on their biggest day,
if you truly tip him well, I think he's like, did he have to leave as soon as you were done?
No, this was 8 a.m. He was booked up the whole day.
Wow. So you were like probably one of his first guys in the chair today.
Yeah. Yeah.
Man.
Tough break. And the thing was, is the next guy wasn't even there yet. It's not like he had a queue of guys waiting.
You go.
There was no one else in the shop when I left.
Wanted his break. That's what it came down to. Yeah, little Seinfeld episode. That's right. Facilitate. Old Giuseppe. All right. Well, we've got to wind this thing down. Jesse, I will see you very soon. We're all excited to get to Canton, Ohio for the nuptials this weekend.
I know. And, I got to say thank you to everyone who's, wished me well. And you won't see me until like probably 3 weeks from now, to be quite honest with you.
I know.
Enjoy your time with Trevor and Vince.
The honeymoon's never going to end, basically. So he's got a ways to go. All right. I'll see you soon. We will wrap it up with that. Budweiser's Weekday Sports Beat with IrishBreakdown.com. Don't forget, coming up Saturday, 3:30 kickoff, Notre Dame and Boise State. Not going to be here. We won't be here for the next couple of days. So we won't talk to you literally again until Monday. But Jim, Tim, Eric, and Tyler, they'll be with you on Saturday, 11 a.m. at the Linebacker and here on Sports Radio WSBT.